Hey everybody, ronarray here, and people ask me pretty often how to properly boss with my Nuke Wave build. Right now, Nuke Wave is one of the strongest bossing builds in the game, and in this video I'm going to showcase my full bossing setup and how you can kill Xesht in like 3 seconds, which is almost immediately. I'm going to showcase all my abilities, what you will need to change, and all my items as well. Check it out and look at the timestamps for particular questions as usual. Let's go. So let's start with the changes and what we are doing to boss better. Generally, when you are bossing, you don't need to use Under Thunder anymore, and instead of that you can just focus on I Shall Rage, because Unbound Avatar is just amazing for bosses. With Unbound Avatar, you're going to literally freeze bosses much faster. You're also going to do much more elemental damage, and it's easy to use it at bosses because you can stack it pretty fast, and if you're fighting Xesht, you can stack it even before the fight starts. The rest stays the same. We're still using Lead Me Through Grace together with Thunder my enemies, and I'm the Blizzard because we'll need additional cold damage. I'm not changing a lot of things in the tree anymore for bossing, so everything stays the same. Except one little thing. You will need to get Resonance, because Resonance is going to help you with your power charges if you will use some particular skills. So swap 2 points. I'm usually swapping 1 point from here, from critical damage to intelligence, and 1 point from up there for Resonance. So Resonance is pretty mandatory, and I recommend you to take it in the most cases because it will be more convenient. However, if you like to boss without it, you can still do that because it's not absolutely mandatory. The rest of the build stays the same, so we are going down, we are taking Catalyst, we are taking Maiming Strike, additional crit here and here and here, and as many Sapphire Jewels as you can see. So right now for Sapphire Jewels I'm running something like that, so maximum energy shield, a Thun threshold, maximum energy shield just in general, critical hit chance and critical damage bonus. I think it helps a lot. And we should have enough spirit in that setup too. So for bossing, I'm using normal, rare body armor with as much energy shield as possible to tank some particular abilities that bosses can cast. Like as you already seen, when you're fighting boss properly, they shouldn't cast literally like anything, but to protect you from some accidents, using rare body armor should be good. Your resistances also should be capped, please keep it in mind, so cold, fire, lightning should work just fine. I'm using Ingenuity in my current setup, together with basic rings, but as you can see I don't have a lot of damage on those rings, so it's mostly mana, some resistances and a little lightning damage here and there. Using breach rings would be a little better for damage, but since I'm killing the boss in 3 seconds already, I don't think we need to invest more into damage to improve it. And with mana rings and Ingenuity, I can reach up to 170 mana recovery. But we have another mana trick that I'm going to showcase later in the video, so if you don't have such a big recovery, don't worry about it, just watch further. Now let's talk about the rest of the items and about my skills in general too. So helmet stays the same, just rarity, resistances. For boots I run rarity as well, some resistances on top. I'm still running basic Hand of Wisdom and action, so just attack speed, lightning damage and rarity of items. And for the amulet I'm running Storm Charge together with mana, critical hit chance, critical damage bonus. Same goes for my weapon. I also remind you that using Soul Core of Tikaba is probably the best option for the most builds for your weapon, because critical damage bonus is multiplicative in the weapon and is going to increase your damage significantly. In my current setup, I'm running Tempest Flurry and around 834% of critical damage bonus, which is pretty nice. Critical hit chance should be around 50%, for bossing it could go a little higher up to 70 or 60, but if you have 50 it should be enough in the most cases. So let's look at the skills. For bossing, our main skill is Tempest Flurry and Tempest Bell. For Tempest Flurry, I'm running Martial Tempo, Overcharge, Practice Combo, Rage and Primal Armament. I don't think that we currently need Electrocution, I'm not really investing much into it. However, in some particular situations, you can replace overcharge with electrocution, so just keep that option in mind. I currently don't feel like it's necessary for my setup, but for Arbiter, for example, it could be an option. So for Tempest build, I'm using only 4 supports, and if you add one more it will be even better, but even 4 are enough. And here comes the mana trick. Soul Thief at the Tempest build is going to improve your mana significantly when you are hitting the build, so I recommend to use it almost always. You can also use Concentrated effect together with Overabundance and Close Combat. Overabundance will give you one more bell, so you can click one button and create that bell. Try to do that right after you place the first bell at the start of the fight. And Close Combat and Concentrated effect are going to increase our damage significantly, so make sure you have both of those supports. After that, we have a Combat Frenzy together with Profusion. Combat Frenzy is necessary together with Resonance to receive charges, which we are going to use as well. And for charges, we have a Charge Staff. It's going to increase our damage a little here and there, and we can also buff it with Persistence, Electrocute and Arcane Tempo. Arcane Tempo is not really providing a lot, so you can get rid of it and just run like Electrocute and Persistence. Electrocution from Charge Staff is not really proccing that often, but it's still an option, so I'm using it here. If you're fighting Arbiter or some bosses where you can't properly stack charges, you can replace Electrocute with Overcharge here and move Overcharge to the Charge Staff, so it will be a little different setup. But generally both of those options are working perfect for me and there's not a lot of changes. Talking about our spirit, I'm still running Green Fist for boosting, so Green Fist together with Clarity and Precision, I think both of those are kinda good right now. I also have a lot of open spirit, my maximum spirit is 254, but I have 54 open, so you should have at least 200 spirit to make everything work perfectly. And going up, we have Storm Wave. I usually use it just to clear monsters. I use Heft, I use Upheaval and Ambush and nothing else. If your damage is good enough, it should be enough. However, if you feel like it's a little too uncomfortable, you can move Martial Tempo for Storm Wave, and right before the boss you should move Martial Tempo back to Tempest Flurry. I'm also using Cast on Shock to kill boss as fast as possible. Cast on Shock together with Eye of Winter is right now the strongest combination for bossing, because Eye of Winter is going to hit your bell a lot of times in the short span of time, and it's going to work very good, increase your damage significantly, and also going to freeze the boss, which is very nice. For Eye of Winter, we are using Deceleration, Impetus and Inspiration. If you have a last slot right here, I recommend to add some additional bonus to an energy, which should be kinda alright too. Why I'm using Cast on Shock and not Cast on Critical? So in general, both Cast on Critical and Cast on Shock is working just perfectly fine. But I feel like Cast on Critical is proccing a little too often and destroying my mana too fast. Since mana is still an issue even if you are hitting the bell, I feel like Cast on Shock is a little more balanced choice. It also requires less spirit, so like 60 spirit against 100 for Cast on Critical. However, if you prefer to run Cast on Critical, keep running it, the setup is the same, so you'll need to use Eye of Winter, Deceleration, Impetus and Inspiration, just with Cast on Critical instead. But for me, Cast on Shock been perfectly enough and it's been very balanced and nice choice. I'm also running both Heralds like Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice, so we can clear monsters significantly easier. In general, if you don't have enough spirit, you can off one of the heralds or even both of them before fighting the boss itself, and you should just like activate Cast on Shock or Cast on Critical. In that regard, just make sure your mana can hold. Also a very important moment, if you don't have enough mana, I recommend to use Ultimate Mana Flask right here, which has 30% of recovery applied instantly. It's going to help you to boost your mana instantly at the boss when you need it. So for example, look, if I'm losing mana too often, and I need to get it back very fast, I can literally just click and as you can see my mana is full almost immediately. So instant flask is a very good option. You can also run a unique flask as well if you want, but I don't really consider it that necessary, and seeing that flask can have a pretty decent price, you don't really need it to kill bosses just fine. So the rest of the setup is literally empty. You need Unbound Avatar, like you can run Ingenuity for it if you want. And I'm not running Blink right now. If you feel like Blink is necessary for you, and you feel like you really need it, you can replace one of the heralds as mostly Herald of Thunder, or you can replace Combat Frenzy with Blink. To get enough Spirit, I recommend to get rid of Precision, it's like 10 Spirit, and you will have approximately 60 Spirit with a good body armor to Blink. However, I'm not really blinking at bosses that often, I'm just staying close to them, and if they're like a bad situation, you can always roll. So that's pretty much it, and we don't really need to add anything on top of it. So the whole rotation is very simple to you. You're just encountering the boss, you're hitting with Tempest Flurry, you're immediately casting Bell, and after Bell is here, the boss is going to get frozen, and you just need to recast the Bell once more. A very important thing that plus level from your weapon, like plus 6 level for melee skills, is buffing your Bell as well, so you will have significantly more hits here, and I think it's working pretty nice. Like, it's almost 30 hits. You will just need to reuse Bell after a few additional Tempest Flurries, and that's pretty much it. When you will get back to your general mapping system setup, you just need to drop Combat Frenzy, use a Blink instead, and replace like charge stuff if you feel like it, or cast on Shock too. On top of it, you can also refund 2 points, place it here, and 1 more for Energy Shield. That's pretty much it. So the whole process of changing your setup to bossing setup should be very fast. But if you're running it like that, you should kill bosses without any kind of issues, and you should just try it yourself. If you have better weapon or better jewels than I do, if you run like rings with additional damage, I think you can kill bosses even faster, but I think 3 seconds with them doing anything is pretty much good enough. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope it's been helpful. I really also hope that you will drop some cool loot from bosses if you're doing that. Have a nice time everybody, and see you next time as well. ronarray out.